This holiday, Verizon is giving you incredible gifts and savings you'll enjoy all year. When you switch, you'll get 4 new iPhone 17 Pros. No trade-in needed. That's right. Get 4 lines for just $25 a line and the amazing iPhone 17 Pro for everyone. Save big this holiday. Visit Verizon today. $20 monthly promo credits applied to account over 35 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G and 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply for phone offer. See Verizon.com for details.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day. Yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Hello and welcome to 15 Days of Festive Fear 2025, and we are on day number 6, and I am joined in the studio by the most wonderful, the most festive, the most intelligent, the most historically accurate man you've ever met in your life, the wonderful Tim Cloke. Hello, Tim.
Emma. I'm sure these introductions get more and more complimentary. I'm here for it, frankly. I need a bit of reassurance here and there.
Well, yeah, they do, and I also forget every time that I have to do it, and then I'm thinking on the fly. Do you know what I mean?
Is the festive thing about my rather fetching Land Rover themed jumper that I'm wearing for you today?
Yes, it is rather fetching. I'm very much enjoying it.
The Christmas lights have just come on the timer in my house, and it genuinely is starting to feel festive now. So we discussed, didn't we, that maybe people are going to be using these as a bit of a refuge from the festivities, because some of us need that, don't we? It can get a bit overstimulating, a bit much.
Yeah, and some people just don't like Christmas, and that is okay.
Fair
and
enough.
You know what? If somebody turns around to you, right? I know this is coming out Stephen's Day or Boxing Day, as people like to refer to it. If somebody turns around to you and they say, "Do you know, I don't really like Christmas," don't turn around and go, "Oh, why? Oh, bah humbug! What everybody loves." Some people don't love Christmas.
You know what? And it's not just the Scrooge types, is it? Because there's plenty of very, very generous people who will be generous in their own way and not just at one time of year. For my part, though, I absolutely love it, especially when I get to stay in the kitchen and make the roast dinner for everyone, because there is no meal like a roast dinner.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
You know what? There's a bit of a food thing going on with this episode as well, but we will come to that.
And
I teased in the last episode the Devon delicacy, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. And you referenced it in relation to the giant story. And now I'm like, I want to know what this delicacy is. I'm intrigued.
Well, I don't want to overhype that, but we've also had talk of plague villages. We've had talk of witches and dogs being turned to stone. There's been all sorts so far. But this really is the second episode of my possibly final love letter to Dartmoor Tales, because I've done so many episodes on this. I don't want to overdo it. But knowing me, I'll probably go on another one of my wild camps and decide on another one, won't I? But this is going to be the second part of a day-long trek that me and my very good friend Lucy did in aid of Marie Curie Cancer Care back in October. I was very grateful to be supported by several Real Life Ghost Stories listeners in raising money there. So this was part of an organised charity walk that we did, so we couldn't choose the route itself. But it took in 13 of Dartmoor's tours. Do you think it's just worth briefly mentioning what a tour is again, just in case?
Yes, I think so.
So in case you're listening to this as a standalone episode, Dartmoor is this very wild wilderness in the southwest of England, and a tor is an eroded granite outcrop at the top of a hill. Now, it might be a small hill, it might be a large hill, but they've all got these weird and wonderful, wacky granite shapes eroded onto the top of them. So we were exploring 13 of these tours in just one day. It's a 14-mile circular walk, so it was going to be pretty challenging. And in the last episode, we reached a massive figure of 2 tours, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
That means that in this episode, that probably won't be much longer, we got 12 tours to cover. No, we haven't. We're doing maths at the moment. We've got 11 tours to cover. Sorry, it's 14 miles, but 13 tours. And so there's lots of tales that are going to be inspired by this as we continue our walk. And I was just saying to you, wasn't I? I'm really enjoying the nostalgia of just being reminded about this brilliant day's walking that I did, because I wrote this very close to when I did the walk, and it's been a couple of months since I've really thought about it.
Which is lovely to be able to reminisce about it.
It really is. So the last tor we reached was Hound Tor, allegedly the stone remains of a group of hunting hounds that were turned to stone by, I think, some justifiably angry witches was the last bit we got to. So
I would like to argue that pretty much all witches, I think, are justifiably angry. So, you know.
Absolutely agree with you there. Absolutely agree, especially with Bowerman the Hunter annoying them so much. So that was the second tor we got to. We've passed by the likely deserted plague village of Hound Tor. And we're just about to hit Tor 3, and then they're just going to keep on coming. So should we get into it?
Let's get into it.
Within 15 minutes or so of being at Hound Tor, we arrived at Tor 3, Grey Tor Rocks. What had seemed distant had seemingly rushed up to meet us. And as we found for the rest of the day, Lucy and I were repeatedly surprised at how easily we made the climbs. Sure, our backpacks were rather lighter than they would have been on a camping trip, but clearly our base level of fitness from our joint training efforts were paying off. Lucy noticed an unconscious habit of following behind my hulking frame whenever the trackway got narrow. So when we were confronted by a tiny worn path through shoulder-high bracken, we decided to switch places and descend the steep slopes to the wooded base of the valley around Becker Brook. Like much of Dartmoor, the commoners let their sheep and cattle graze where they please, so the trees in the valleys tend to be small, gnarled and ancient-looking. We took in the sight of the moss-hung oaks and were pleased to see a modest clapper bridge over the brook. Usual procedure on finding such a bridge is for one or both of us to pose mid-span for a photo, and this instance was no different. Such bridges often mark ancient packhorse routes on the moor, providing a rare place for travellers to go dry foot over Dartmoor's gin-clear stream waters. This reminded me of some of the tales relating to the bridges of Dartmoor. Bridges, being literal crossing places, seem attracted to ghosts and folklore, perhaps as rather liminal spaces between one location and the next. On the southwestern side of the moor is Cadover Bridge. There it is said that a battle took place in the late Saxon period, 1,000 years ago. People crossing the bridge report hearing the faint sound of the clash of steel on the wind, and the screams of the dying in the waters. They shiver and then hurry on their way. However, the small folk of the moor, known as the Piskies locally, and other sprites of their ilk, are also regularly associated with bridges. One of the more infamous of these parts is Cutty Dyer. On the edge of the moor, nestled astride the River Ashburn, known as the River Yeo in older times, is the town of Ashburton. Much expanded and now well connected by the A38 road, Ashburton was once a rather more isolated place, principally visited for the use of the many small stone medieval bridges over the river. Cutty Dyer is said to be an entity of malign intent who lurks under the arches of these very crossings. Since time immemorial, Ashburton mothers have cautioned their children against venturing too close to the riverbanks near the several small bridges on Ashburton. The inviting-looking waters are often terribly cold, being drained from the snowmelt and peat springs of the nearby moor. Devon children, being more hardy than most, needed the most dire warnings if they were to heed the advice. So they were told that venturing near to the riverbank around twilight would be enough to have Cutty Dyer seize the hapless child, cutting their throats and tearing them open to bleed to death into the fast-flowing waters below. However, Cutty Dyer did not only appear to the children of the village. In the 19th century, two men were staggering home late after a lock-in at the local pub, possibly the Bay Horse, near to several of the small bridges over the Yeo. Their account was one of a terrifying ogre standing midstream with staring aggressively at them. But of course, the witness testimony of a pair of old men well sodden with local ale cannot be treated with too much credulity. Instead, I shall refer to a more respectable publication, the Journal of the Devonshire Association of Science, Literature and Art, written in 1879. It reads, "Old townspeople of Ashburton recollect well the dread of their lives when children was a mysterious being supposed to inhabit the River Yeo, with whose displeasure It is in its undefined consequences they were threatened by parents and nurses as a punishment for disobedience and childish frolics. To the generation before, namely to our great-grandparents, Cutty Dyer was the dread of their more matured years, and was supposed to inflict summary punishment on topers as they headed with difficulty by night along the dark streets to their houses. He was described by persons who saw him as being very tall, standing in the water to his waist, his red eyes as large as saucers, endeavouring to pull them into the water. When the stream was bridged, he remained only a scare to children, and on the streets being lighted, he disappeared altogether. A more detailed description of his appearance, if anything, provides further horror to the vision. The water was dripping from his garments, and gleamed in the baleful light that shot from his great goggle-like eyes of the monster. His black hair hung down over his shoulders in twisted locks that could only be likened to snakes, and his beard of the same colour descended to his belt. Little of his face was visible, but the huge eyes and the teeth, like those of a shark, were quite sufficient to repress any inquisitive desire on the part of any man to see the rest of his features. As Lucy and I bounded over the Clapper Bridge at Becker Brook, our minds were fixed solely on the beauty of our surroundings and the daunting climb ahead of us. Perhaps had we been walking after nightfall, our minds might have strayed towards the shadows around the bridge. Whatever the truth, I hope today the children of Ashburton still beware of Cutty Dyer.
I love stories like this that have grown up around warning children to stay away from something.
Absolutely.
I think it's really fascinating, and I love that he's like a big ogre.
Yeah. And not just children, also those other children we sometimes have in our lives, drunks coming home from the pub.
That really tickled me. Two drunk fellas coming over the pub swore they saw him.
Where have you been? Oh, we had to come a long way round, me dear. You'd never believe what I saw. But what I like about that, though, you might have even missed this. That source I read from was from 1879, and yet it referred to it being the dread of their great-great-grandparents. So this story must have been going around in Ashburton for donkey's years.
For generations.
Literally, so many generations by now. That must be going back to sort of the late 17th century, mustn't it?
Yeah.
So what a brilliant story, though. But I was contacted by a listener well over a year ago now, I think, saying, oh, you must do the story of Cutty Dyer. Well, because I hadn't been to Ashburton, I hadn't done it. But this gave me the opportunity. I thought, hey, it's a bit of a tenuous segue, but us going across the bridge at Becker Brook, hey, who knows what might be lurking on that?
Do you know what we love? A tenuous segue.
To shoehorn that one in. By the way, if anyone heard like a sort of crackling noise just now, that was my cat clawing at the carpet, just as a little protest at having not been fed yet. So
yeah, I love when they do that, when they're like, I'm just going to remind you that I'm here.
Yeah, she didn't meow or anything to make it obvious, but that was not me or Cutty Dyer clawing at anything. That was just Lily the cat. But yeah, great story, a cautionary tale for the youngsters. And surely a good reason to be careful on the way home from the pub at Ashburton, eh?
Absolutely.
This holiday, Verizon is giving you incredible gifts and savings you'll enjoy all year. When you switch, you'll get 4 new iPhone 17 Pros. No trade-in needed. That's right. Get 4 lines for just $25 a line and the amazing iPhone 17 Pro for everyone. Save big this holiday. Visit Verizon today. $20 monthly promo credits applied to account over 35 months with a new line on unlimited welcome. In times of congestion, unlimited 5G and 4G LTE may be temporarily slower than other traffic. Domestic data roaming at 2G speeds. Additional terms apply for phone offer. See Verizon.com for details.
Grief doesn't keep a calendar. Anxiety doesn't clock out after 5. Depression doesn't care if it's your busy season. But support can still fit into your life. With Grow, you can find a therapist who meets you where you are. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions. You can search by insurance, provider specialty, treatment methods, and more to find a therapist who works for you. And if it's not the right fit, switching is easy. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Find therapy on your time. Evenings, weekends, and cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/ACAST today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/ACAST. growtherapy.com/ACAST. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Imagine being the wizard of your home. With Xfinity Wi-Fi, you can boostify speeds for the moments that count and magically pause Wi-Fi to any device. And now you can cast a spell to stop time and keep your internet bill the same for 5 years with the Xfinity 5-year price guarantee. Equipment included, no contracts or commitments. Xfinity, imagine that. And see Wicked for Good, only in theaters November 21st. Restrictions apply, select plans only.
Dog owners, we love to spoil our pups. And more than anything, we want them to live long, healthy, comfortable lives. But here's the thing. A lot of us don't realize when our dogs are trying to tell us something's wrong. Constant paw licking, rubbing on the couch, or obsessively eating grass can all be signs of allergies. Because 90% of a dog's immune system lives in the gut, supporting digestion is key. That's where Better Wild Allergy Relief Soft Chews come in. These veterinarian-approved chews use an ancestral blend of wolf probiotics called Ancestral Advantage to strengthen your dog's natural defenses. Better Wild even offers chews for joint support, dental health, and a digestive meal topper, all science-backed solutions to help your dog feel their best. Right now, Better Wild is offering our listeners up to 40% off of your order at betterwild.com/podcast. That's betterwild.com/podcast for up to 40% off your order. betterwild.com/podcast.
Should we continue to our next tour? I did say they're going to come thick and fast.
Yeah, let's go.
We ascended a steep path up to tour number 4, Smallacombe Rocks, grateful of our walking poles on the uneven ground and still pleasantly surprised at our stamina in climbing the hills. Smallacombe Rocks is a fairly low tour, but the views back over to Hound Tor and then to the wide sweep of Hameldown gave us ample time to reflect on the fact that we were, by now, nearly halfway around the route. The guide at Smallacombe took our photo, then pointed out towards a green path to a distant car, which itself suggested that there must be a trackway leading high into this part of the moor. Indeed, on reaching it, we found park conservators cutting peat, and we soon made good progress along an ancient tramway. There was evidence of quarrying all over, with half-cut blocks of stone discarded onto the hillsides. Indeed, though we did not encounter them this time, unused granite components cut for the use in London Bridge can be found along the same tramway. The tramway, 2 parallel grooves of stone cut like rails by the passage of innumerable iron-tired cartwheels, swept over the ridge until we had reached tour number 5, Holwell Tor. A 19th century poem gives an idea of the operation of the tramway, which must have been quite a sight with a huge team of horses pulling a train of wagons. 19 stout horses, it was known, from Holwell Quarry drew the stone, and mounted on 12-wheeled car, 'twas safely brought from Holwell Tor. Photo secured, and by now more confident in how many fingers each of us should be holding up for each picture, we retraced our steps back to the tramway, and then made our way up the side of a substantial quarry face, and then the massive monolithic edifices that make up tour number 6, Haytor. Climbers with more bravery than me were clambering up and around the overhangs, and those that had already conquered the summits stood surveying the scenery. Lucy, a keen climber, may have been tempted to have a go, but if she was, she didn't make any obvious moves in that direction. Instead, we posed for a photo with a smart-looking spaniel pointer cross who delighted in chasing a tiny stick. Again, we missed Lola Pup, who would have had so much fun in the stream below. From Haytor, virtually our whole route could be seen, and while we hadn't yet reached the halfway point in terms of tours, less than 6 miles remained of the hike. A slow but steady descent from Haytor, skirting the larger of its impressive outcrops, led us on to charge towards Saddle Tor. The origin of its name has nothing of the supernatural about it. A broad, smooth and rounded slope is flanked on either side by rocks that for all the world look like the pommel and cantle of a saddle. Appropriately surrounded by feral but docile Dartmoor ponies, we had our 7th photo taken, and perhaps inspired by a nursing foal, stopped to refuel. Lucy had the last of the tea, while I surprised myself by how much I enjoyed the slightly artificial flavours of a US Army MRE dessert of blueberry cobbler. We took time to take in the views, scout out the route ahead through the binoculars, and make some running repairs to our feet, which were in good shape but for the occasional ingress of granite pebbles. The next tour was less than a quarter of a mile away, as the Dartmoor buzzard soars anyway, but involved a steep climb up to the top. Yet again, we surprised ourselves at how rapidly the tour was conquered. Perhaps the lingering haze made places look more distant, or perhaps our fitness really was doing us some favours. Photo 8 was taken atop Ripon Tor, staffed by a marshal we had first met on Hamel Down. Lucy had suspected that she might be asked to hurry over from a different tour later on, and she was quite right. The guide inquired after the woolen bandana Lucy wore to keep her hair from getting too windswept. Anyone who's seen photographs of me know that I do not suffer any such difficulties. But this particular bandana had been made especially by her mother, in the Marie Curie colours, for this walk. It was decided that it would be left at the finish line as a thank you, and we both like to think that it has found its intended good home. And at this point, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to all the volunteers at all these charities who make these sorts of things possible, because these people were stood at the top of these windswept hills for hours upon hours at a time, guiding people. They were cheerful for every single person they met, and just generally being complete legends. So although not much supernatural there, I think it is almost spooky how many people are prepared to give up their time like this, and fair play to them.
Yeah, people are amazing. People are, and I always think that anytime we do any kind of organised sporting event where it needs like marshals or whatever, those people are amazing, giving up their time.
Yeah, this marshal was the first one that we met on our walk, just as we'd made up the very first climb to the Two Moors Way, and she had this little yapping terrier with her. It was great fun, and we did think to ourselves, oh, maybe we're going to see her again later on. And yeah, but then we thought about it. And not only she had been stood at the top of that hill for hours while all the walkers were coming past, because we start at different times of the day, she then had to trek right down the valley again and then right up the other side. And she told us she didn't have a car with her or anything. She just walked it, which must have been about 4 miles in itself. But she'd have to get there before the first walkers had made it back round. She'd have to get a real move on. So we thought the least thing that we could do was leave her a little present. And Lucy was good to her word. Of course she was. She left that woolen headband at the sort of HQ, if you like, in Widdicombe and the Moor. But we've got no idea if she ever got it. So in the off chance she maybe heard this, maybe she can let us know. But it was just felt like the least we could do, you know?
Yeah.
Now, that means that I've covered a whole load of tours in pretty short order, haven't I?
Yeah, you absolutely motored through those.
We did, but then that's what it was like on the walk. After all, this particular couple of episodes is really strictly structured by the actual experience of doing it. And this is what it was like at this stage. You go, right, we're at Tour 3. Oh, and there's Tour 4, and there's Tour 5. Whereas there'd been 3 or 4 miles between the previous earlier tours.
Yeah.
We were beginning to wonder, even though we had basically a familiarity with the route, how are we going to cover 13 tours in one day when it's taken us this long to get to 2 of them? And we found so many stories on the way. But yeah, it's deceptive in a way, because you can see by the time you get to Haytor, every single part of the route virtually. And it looks both massive and quite small at the same time. In some ways. Well, how on earth were we over there so short a time ago? And then you go, well, actually, no, it really is only a stone's throw. But you'll know that if you go on Dartmoor. And the weather was kind to us. And it's a reminder how actually in some quite small areas you can get lost so badly when the pixies lead you astray in the fog and in the mist. But none of those worries that day. Shall we continue with our journey?
Yeah, let's continue.
The final 5 tours were all neatly in a row, with somewhat undulating climbs between each of them, and, in truth, a disappointing lack of supernatural or folkloric connection. Nevertheless, there were still moments of inspiration, and for completeness, I'll describe in brief what we encountered. Tour 9 was Top Tour, imaginatively named for the fact that it was at the top of the hill, above Widdicombe in the Moor. In some circles, it is claimed to have poetic connections with the poet Beatrice Chase, who wrote about Dartmoor and described her dream tour as one at which she sought refuge, away from the stresses and strains of the world. She never, perhaps understandably, revealed which tour this was, so this is left to our interpretation. We had our 9th photo, Lucy held up 5 fingers, me 4, windswept but happy amongst the low rocks which are accessible from the road, but would indeed shield anyone sheltering there from view until the very last moment. Perhaps it is best to let Beatrice Chase describe her dream tour in her own words, which are fitting of this peak, despite its comparative lack of height and lacklustre name. The tour's real name is not, of course, Dream Tour or anything like it. I call it that because it is my favourite home tour. On it, I have seen my sublimest visions, dreamt my divinest dreams. It is not marked upon any Ordnance Survey map, thank heaven, and no tourist ever comes near it from year's end to year's end. To the south slope, Blue Hole Moor, bounded at last by the great shoulder of Brent Tor, due north the olive and russet slopes of the moor, ran to the topstone of Hamel Down. To the west lay that finest vista of all, the tract of land between Widdicombe and Tavistock, with lordly Belvoir standing peerless in its centre. Fortunately for Beatrice Chase, she was not daydreaming on this date, otherwise 150 or so gaudily clad hikers would have interrupted her artistic solitude. Having no time to rest ourselves, Lucy and I trekked on. But I must say, I really love that description of how it feels to be out on Dartmoor, because it provides me with so much peace of mind and inspiration, even when the going gets tough on the moor. And yes, I have been that person. I looked over the Ordnance Survey map, and of course, Top Tor is on there. But if you kind of triangulate between all the other points that she mentions, it can only really be one or two places. And so I think Top Tor is very likely where she was talking about. And yeah, tourists do go there, but it would be so easy to slink away down the other side of the hill if you heard anyone coming, and keep the place to yourself if you really wanted to. And that's the magic of the moor.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say this to people, especially when we talk about grief.
Yeah.
So there is like often people who specialize in grief will recommend that if you are feeling overwhelmed, if you're really in your grief, and it's kind of similar with like, mild depression, or if you're feeling like stressed in your job or whatever, if you go to anywhere that has big nature, it will really make you feel a million times better. Now, obviously, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, I'm not saying it's going to cure you. I'm not saying it's going to take things away. I'm not saying that it is, go outside and go for a walk will cure all of your mental illnesses. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is that being in big nature can really be therapeutic for a period of time. So whether that's by the sea, whether that's like in this instance on one of the tours in the moor, like, whether that's in a big woods, it really can make a difference.
It's probably not going to hurt. It's so true. I think as well that this sense that the moor is common land to this day, so it literally belongs to everyone.
Yeah.
In a way that so many other parts of this country do not. And yet, everyone's experience of it is incredibly personal. And I know that the way that Lucy's experienced it is probably different to the way that I've experienced it. I know that it's a very different day out if I'm with a friend or friends to when I'm on my own. But there are some times I just get the call and I want to go up on the moor. And if I can, I will. I mentioned a little bit later on, actually, as part of this episode, where my last wild camping trip up there, which of course wasn't as part of this walk. But the idea, without getting on too much of a high horse, I hope, that Dartmoor is the only place in England where it is legal to take a tent out into the wilderness and just camp under the stars without permission or without needing to make arrangements. I just find such a shame, because we were surrounded by incredibly varied and dramatic landscapes, and we have so little access to them. And there are problems, of course, and Dartmoor gets this as well, where people are leaving litter and they're being irresponsible. But I do believe that fewer people would be irresponsible if they were more regularly involved in the nature around them and more regularly practiced in accessing these spaces. Because, well, there's a reason why I've done my wild camping trips on Dartmoor. It's because it is legal there. If I ever do an episode, for example, on Bodmin Moor or on Exmoor, which are only 20, 30 miles away, then to do so, I would be breaking the law, and I probably wouldn't be able to admit to it on air. I'd say, I went back to my car and drove home, and I came back to the exact same place the next day. And would you believe it? You live by the principle, whether you're walking or camping, that you leave no trace.
Yeah.
Even, don't even leave footprints if you can get away with it. It's you leave it exactly as you found it for the next person or the next sheep who comes there. And Lily is now making noise in the background, so I'm sorry about that. If
I can hear her cackling.
She's very upset with me. She's about 20 minutes late for her tea and is utterly appalled by that fact.
It's amazing the way cats can tell the time.
Oh, I know. I think her stomach just tells her, doesn't she? If looks could kill Emma. That's
I bet she's like, you absolute traitor.
Next came Tor number 10, the low but multitudinous boulders of Bonehill Rocks. The Tor not noticeably resembling skeletal remains, we again stopped for a photo and were happy to take one of the chocolates of achievement, as they've been dubbed, handed out by the marshal. I had an almost sickly caramelly Mars bar sweet and Lucy a coconut bounty sweet. Those are the ones that are always left over in the sweet tin at Christmas in my house, and her selection reminded me of yet another reason why I keep Lucy around. Everyone needs a friend to eat the sweets that they don't like. 3 tours to go, and Tour 10 was accessed once a small stream had been hopped over, the process showing that we had still had a little spring in our step yet. Bell Tor was pleasantly round and pointed in shape, with steep faces sheltering a Highland Cross cow and her calf. We seemed to race ahead of 2 other walkers to get to the marshal without really meaning to. We got our photo and proceeded onto the even higher 11th Tor beyond. Within minutes we had summited Chinkwell Tor, and while these last peaks came in a hurry, we were not so rushed that we could not take in the surroundings. Hay Tor was visible through the stubborn haze and seemed to be about level with us, but to the north was the valley down to Widdicombe and Journey's End. The pale autumn sunlight penetrated the cloud in bright shafts of light. One such beam illuminated the orange bracken of a distant hill towards Kitty J's grave to the northeast. 2 more shone down on Hameldown, and one seemed to share a divine light on the Gothic tower of Widdicombe Church, truly fitting its title of the Cathedral of the Moor. I have recounted the mysterious and destructive history of the great storm of 1638 before, but today the weather had been kind, if cool. Instead, I thought of another Dartmoor church, quite the opposite of the sight before my eyes. While Lucy and I were elevated above the valley with a magnificent and illuminated church before us, this tale refers to an elevated church of much more modest proportions, and of a salvation from darker times. Devil lore abounds on Dartmoor, and this tale comes from the western reaches of the moor, above the village of Mary Tavy. The God-fearing people of the moor were always wary of the devil in every dark place of the moor, and many chapels and wayside crosses of the moor were believed to provide them with protection. Such preventions had starved the devil of victims, so when he spied a merchant vessel, the Virtue, making its serene way up the channel, loaded with the silks and spices of the east, the devil summoned a great storm. A tall, isolated hill on the edge of the moor was used as a beacon hill, and fires were lit there to guide ships in the night. The storm quenched the flames, and the Virtue was plunged into deadly darkness. Lightning lanced down all around the stricken ship, and the devil drew upon the winds and currents to bring the ship slowly, inexorably towards the deadly rocks, laughing with an evil glee as he did. All night the crew fought for survival until dawn began to break. The ship's master, one Hugh the merchant, had been told that no earthly power could save them, and he went below decks and prayed for salvation. As light began to return, he came back on deck and, mounting the aftercastle, knelt down once again and prayed aloud to St. Michael that if he and his ship were saved, he would build a church on the highest point of land that he could see and dedicate it to the saint. At once, the wind dropped. The rain stung the faces of the crew with less ferocity, and light began to return. The devil howled in frustration, but his evil was no match for St. Michael. A shaft of heavenly light pierced the overcast of the devil's storm and illuminated the top of Beacon Tor, today known as Brentor, for all to see. The Virtue made landfall with all souls saved, and Hugh the merchant was good to his word. Learning that it was Brentor that he had seen, he set about providing all the money and stone needed to fulfill his pledge, and the plan for a small but fine church was laid out on top of the Tor. As Hugh neared the end of his task, the devil appeared again. He summoned another great storm, and the half-completed stone walls, not yet protected by any roof, were scattered and spread about the base of the Tor. Undaunted, Hugh began his task again. And again the devil wanted the last laugh. This time, however, St. Michael intervened and warded off the devil. As the evil one turned tail and fled, St. Michael lifted a great boulder and cast it at the devil, catching him in one of his cloven hooves. His tormentor thus injured, Hugh had the time to complete his church, smaller than he had hoped, and indeed the smallest on the moor, and once dedicated, the devil could not touch it. To this day, the church on Brentor stands as a monument to Hugh's faith, and special services, especially on Christmas Day, remain popularly attended, with people happy to make the steep and winding trek up to Dartmoor's most remote place of worship.
Again, with the devil stories.
We love a devil story.
Yeah, he's got very little to be doing, really. Only mooching around Dartmoor.
I wish I had a calendar as free as his. I can say that.
Honestly. And really, like, you're the devil. Surely you'd be trying to interfere with kind of world politics. Global.
I mean, there's plenty of people out there to be tempted. What issue has he got with this trading ship? Is it because it was called the Virtue, maybe?
Maybe, but then again, that's very petty. If you're the devil and you're being upset by something being called the Virtue, you need you listen. Is it any wonder that you didn't make it back into heaven?
It's so true. I tell you something else though. This is another one of those stories that I first heard as a really young child. I remember the very first time I had this, it was actually a bus driver told this, or a coach driver, I should say. We're being driven down as a part of a primary school trip to a historic site called Morwellham Quay, which is a very industrial revolution sort of themed place. Still open, still a great place to go. And as part of our journey, you do pass by Brentor, and it's there, this great big, almost artificial looking hill with a church on top of it. And he got on the microphone and he told us all the story. As you can imagine, all these little faces pressed against the glass. And I thought, yeah, this is yet another story that I've known for pretty much the majority of my life, and yet I've not told it yet because it's not a part of the war that I've gone to. But again, look up Brentor and Brentor Church. There are prehistoric monuments around there, but it is a really striking looking place.
Yeah.
And, I've heard various versions of it. But there's a bit of a Devon tradition as well of saints casting stones at the devil and clipping him or crushing him with stones. I mentioned in a long previous episode, one of the first main episodes I did with you about haunted pubs. Yeah. About the Devil's Stone Inn in Shebbear in North Devon. And that's another one where the local saint, I forget who, it might even be St. Michael again, has cast down a stone on the devil. And there is just this random bit of granite rock in a completely unnatural place outside of the church in Shebbear that every year is turned over, because the idea is that the devil's trying to crawl from underneath it. And just on the same date as he gets on top of the stone, it's turned over again and it crushes him. And every year someone goes out and does that. They have a bit of a party with it in town. It happens to be on November the 5th, which is also Bonfire Night, another commemoration in England. But even during the COVID years when everything was locked down, sure enough, someone went out with a plank on their own and managed to wedge this stone over. So there's a proud tradition of saints who have churches dedicated to them in Devon, casting stones at the devil and making sure that he can't complete his evil deeds.
Yeah, again, I always think as well with these stories, very easy actually to stop the devil.
Yeah, he's not as powerful as you think.
Yeah, Big Rock will do it.
Yeah,
which kind of seems a bit mad, really, doesn't it? Considering he is supposed to be the antithesis of God.
There are a lot of big rocks lying around in Devon, though, so maybe that's got something to do with where these stories have come from. But it is true to say that Brentor is incredibly distinctive, and you can see it from out to sea. If you look at
amazing.
Sound, you can just see it out to sea. It's a great little story, that one there. And who cares if it's true?
Oh yeah, as with all these stories. Sorry, do I actually believe that a big giant was mooch? No, but I don't care.
You know what is true? Someone did have to go to the effort of lugging all of those big bits of stone up to the top of a ridiculously tall and steep hill to build a church and to dedicate it. And that very much is true. And I'd love to go to a Christmas service there one day, but I think it's very much a locals only event. And that's probably right, given how small it is. But there we are. I mean, if you probably listen to this around about Christmas time, think of that on Christmas Day, people winding up the little path to the top of Brentor and sitting down and singing a few carols and worshipping in their own chosen way. What a great thing. And we're very nearly at my last tour as well, but we're not at our final story quite yet. So shall we come to Journey's End? Let's
do it.
After drinking in the amazing views, we got our penultimate photo taken and then descended towards our final tour, Honeybag Tour. Much to our surprise, we had not yet opened any of the sweets that we had brought with us. So, having gratefully taken a jelly baby or two from some other hikers, we decided to commence upon the fruit pastels. Having discussed our mutual preference for the supermarket own brand over the premium branded variety on grounds of both texture and size, we shared a laugh and a smile at our ridiculous ability to keep each other amused by talking utter rubbish for hour on end. It was for the best that we were alone for most of the route. We would have driven other hikers to despair with our in-jokes and daft babble. But a friend like that is hard to find, and the chatter continued as we began our final climb to the 13th summit. 13 fingers raised up with smiles like Cheshire cats, we had our last photo taken before heading down to our final descent towards Whittaken. Somewhere along this final track, moments after we both commented that our feet were beginning to tire, Lucy's shoelace caught on her opposite boot, and her own footwear did its best to dump her head first into the crisp bracken to the side. Catching herself just in time, and with my steadying hand doing little to improve the situation, we laughed it off. Maybe pride does become before a fall. She confessed it had happened once already that day, though, but we reasoned that 2 false steps out of over 40,000 that day were pretty good odds, and we carried on. We hit the tarmac again and descended the steep slope through the hamlet of Bonehill, chatting about the pretty stone-built farm buildings and a finely kept Land Rover, Lucy being something of a connoisseur of the type, mostly to distract ourselves from overfilled bladders and aging knees plodding down the unyielding surface. Finally, we made the last climb up into Whittaken, to be greeted to a warm welcome from the Marie Curie volunteers for tea and medals. Literally. Both of us beaming, we accepted the ribbons around our necks, sipped the non-alcoholic bubbly wine, and sat down to a proper Devon cream tea. Lucy had hers cream first, jam second, in the, dare I say, correct Devon way, on a gluten-free fruit scone, and I had mine the objectively incorrect but time-honoured Cornish Cloke traditional way of jam first and cream second. It is perhaps surprisingly this West Country delicacy of clotted cream that inspires my final tale and brings us back full circle like the walk to the giant law of Dartmoor once again. Around a month before this Dartmoor trip, I had taken the chance on a fine evening to have a short hike and a wild camp on a Friday after work, having missed out on this during the summer holidays. Not having the time to plan a more adventurous route, I climbed the 5 miles from Oakhampton on the northern edge of the moor along established trails regularly used by the British Army and Royal Marines for training. No live firing was due to take place, though the occasional glint of brass from spent 5.56mm cartridges reminded me that cattle and storms were not the only perils of the moor. After a brisk walk up, I arrived at little-known Dinger Tor, a low outcrop, boggy on one side and steep on the other, looking down into the deep valley of the West Oakmont River. I pitched my tent and feasted on the rich and boozy delights of my specially selected French military ration. It so happens that this particular tour is instead famous for food of a different quality. In the years after the giant King Gomagot was killed, a giant called Blunderbuss had made his home on Dinger Tor. The giants of ancient Britain were apparently polygamous, and Blunderbuss had 4 wives. He was kind to them all, but let's just say the division of labour between Blunderbuss and his wives at Dinger Tor left much to be desired from the point of view of equality. Blunderbuss tried to hide it, but it was obvious that his greatest affection was for his youngest, fairest wife, Jenny. She could not cook or sew very well, but the pair would sit and talk and enjoy each other's companionship whenever they could. Perhaps understandably, the other 3 wives decided life might be a little better if they got rid of Jenny. They deliberately burned Blunderbuss's food, stained his clothes, and tore his sheets until the weak-willed giant backed down and agreed to banish his blameless, if pampered, wife. He took her to the Cornish coast and set her up in as much comfort as he could in a coastal cave, promising to visit as often as he could. Jenny wept most nights, until one dark, moonless night she heard the coarse discussions of a group of men atop the cliff. She looked out to see a Phoenician ship upon the sea, and then up on the cliffs once more she discerned the men leading a lame donkey with a lantern. These were wreckers, looking to lure the ship onto the rocks with a lantern so that they could loot the wrecked ship's cargo for the next morning, with pickings for all. Kind-hearted Jenny could not abide this, and set a fire upon the cliffside, warning the Phoenician merchants just in time. A crew rowed ashore, and while the wreckers cursed and searched for Jenny, the merchants chased them down and put them all to death. The captain of the ship was full of gratitude and admiration for Jenny, and on hearing her sad story came up with a plan for her to find her way home and and even win back the favour of the other wives. He taught the young giantess how to make the delicacy of thickened cream, topped with a delicate crust that spread beautifully upon baked goods for a luxurious creamy treat. He called it clouted cream, and Jenny brought her delicious discovery all the way back to Dinner Tor. Blunderbuss was full of admiration and begged her forgiveness for his not standing by her, and the other wives reluctantly agreed that this new treat was too delicious to give up, and even agreed to help her learn a few more skills into the bargain. Soon, this clouted or clotted cream was famous all over Devon and Cornwall, with the principal disagreement now focused upon the order in which it is applied to a scone in a cream tea. So, at the dining tables of the ancient schoolhouse at the church gates, we spread our clotted cream thickly on our scones, each in our own way. For perhaps the first time in around 15 miles and many hours of walking, we both of us kept quiet, smiling, munching away on sweet baked goods and basking in the satisfaction of a job well done, with £100 raised for each of the 13 tors we climbed. There are many magical moments on Dartmoor, but this one is surely the cream of the crop.
You just couldn't help yourself with that pun at the end, could you?
I couldn't help it, I'm sorry.
No, don't apologise. I actually think clotted cream is one of the most delicious things in the world.
I'm with you on that. I've bought 2 tubs of it today for Christmas, and I know that when I go out tomorrow, I'll think, I need to get another 2 just in case.
Listen, I feel you. It's the just in case cream.
Yeah.
So I had a party recently in my house, and it was we watched Moulin Rouge. We have a film club where whoever hosts picks the film. I picked the film, and I decided, because obviously it's based in Paris, so I had charcuterie as my nibbles, right? Obviously, so I had loads of meat and loads of cheese, and I just couldn't stop buying cheese. I couldn't. I kept getting emergency cheese, just more and more emergency cheese, with the result that there is cheese in my house. The party was at least a month ago. There is cheese in my house that is still unopened because I just kept getting emergency cheese. I just couldn't stop myself. And I feel the same way about clotted cream. Because when I have a scone with cream and jam, right, I am putting an obscene amount of clotted cream on that scone.
Yeah. I already know what's going to happen tomorrow when I go in for my final bit of Christmas food shopping. There's a lovely tiny little shop in the Penny Market in town that sells locally sourced cheeses of all varieties. And I will have these high-minded ideas of going in and said, I have a bit of that one, a bit of that one, a bit of that one. What's actually going to happen, and I've already come to terms with this, so I'll just say, I will have 300 grams of every single one of them, please.
Yes, please, and thank you.
And if that costs me 70 quid, fine.
Yeah, so be it.
And then I'll say, now could you please furnish me with the correct quantity of crackers to have with those cheeses, please? The correct quantity is, well, there aren't too many. And this is why I will be, frankly, in a cheese coma for the rest of Christmas, because I'll just be munching on that. My brother will have as much as he can as well. My nieces will have a little bit. I'm sure Dad will have some, Mum will have some. But it's one of dairy products in general. But clotted cream, local cheeses, just unmitigated joys.
I know, dreamy. They're just perfect.
Myself so hungry now as well. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm starving, actually.
Can you imagine how starving we were at the end of our journey, though, when all of a sudden we're being presented with these cream teas? And Lucy had already come to terms with the idea that there wouldn't have been any gluten-free ones. She said, do you have any gluten-free ones? And they went, yeah.
Oh,
there you go.
Yeah.
Take some home with you.
And you know, you said earlier that there is something scientifically tea tastes better in the outdoors. I think, and I think this is scientific. I personally don't drink tea, right? So I can't comment on that. But I do think everything tastes better when you're out and about.
You know what? Lucy very rarely drinks tea as well, until we get in the outdoors, and then she can't have enough of it. I've got these lovely tea bags that Mum sends down from Yorkshire, or if I'm visiting her up in Yorkshire, I just buy a stash of them to last me until the next visit. And she liked those so much, we had to get her a box of them so that she could have them have to take back, and they are incredible. But there is something about those circumstances as well. We're in this beautiful old, I would say probably 16th or 17th century schoolhouse building, more like a big open stone-built hall with all the local granite there as well. We'd really taken our time around the journey as well. We're one of the last groups to leave, but also we really just took our time and had snacks and things all the way like we do. And so it was really just us and a few volunteers who were in there. There's a couple of people who came in later on. And we just sat at the end of this long table that loads of people had their cream teas at before. And we just sat there in blissful enjoyment. I'll have to send you the photograph and you'll see us enjoying our cream teas. And you know what? People can argue all they like in the comments about which order is the correct way to have it. I say the objectively wrong way because lots of people say that the cream should be like the replacement for the butter because, the jam goes on second. You know what? I don't care. We've always in my family, we just put a great big dollop on it. If that's wrong, I don't want to be right.
Yeah, just eat it whatever way. Just who cares? Yeah. Just eat it. Just eat things.
Have it. No one really cares anyway.
No, that's true.
If you disagree with that, by all means, sound off. But it's not going to change anything I do.
Tim, it has been an absolute joy to follow you on your journey, and I mean that wholeheartedly.
And it's been nice to have my friend Lucy along with this, if not on the podcast, but included in the story. And like I said earlier, I'm going to dedicate this to her because she has helped me this year in ways you cannot imagine. When I thought that I'm completely, my back is completely regressed again and I've been absolutely broken, she's been an absolute legend for that. I like to think that I've helped her in return, but I'm nothing but filled with love and admiration for her. She's been absolutely superb this year, and I couldn't have asked for a better walking partner on Dartmoor. So, mate, if you're hearing this, thanks again. It's been a great 2025. Let's do something stupid next year as well.
That sounds like an absolute plan. Do something stupid, and we want to hear about it.
Yeah, especially when we get some content out of it, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. You know me, I always think about content, Tim. Always think about that content.
Got to be done. What a way to round off the year, though.
Oh my God, what a way to round off the year. And we
started with Cornish ghost stories right back in January, didn't we?
Yes, we did. And here we are.
Full circle. There were giant stories in that one there as well, wasn't there?
Oh, I love it. I love it when we come full circle with things.
That's the way to end the year, isn't it?
Tim, where can people find you if they want to find you?
Well, they can find me on my YouTube channel, which is Mr. Cloke History. I'm sure Emma will be kind and provide a link. That's filled with often quite short videos about a variety of US history, British history and world history topics, which are geared around the British school curriculum. But I'm told that they do kind of work as a podcast in their own. If you'd like to tune into them, that'd be really, really helpful. And of course, it's Christmas time, so I'm getting a bit of a dip in subscribers. So if you'd like to support me in some small way, that would be really, really appreciated if you wanted to subscribe to the channel. You can also find me and some of my sadly rather infrequent whiteboard drawings on Dry Wipe History on Instagram as well. And it'd be lovely if you could drop that a follow as well.
Tim, it has been an absolute pleasure as always. Thank you so much for rounding off the year. I appreciate you so much, and as do the listeners.
I will see you in 2026, Emma. Thanks very much, and cheers, dears.
Imagine being the wizard of your home. With Xfinity Wi-Fi, you can boostify speeds for the moments that count and magically pause Wi-Fi to any device. And now you can cast a spell to stop time and keep your internet bill the same for 5 years with the Xfinity 5-year price guarantee. Equipment included, no contracts or commitments. Xfinity, imagine that. And see Wicked for Good, only in theaters November 21st. Restrictions apply, select plans only.